as a business owner, your business is worth significantly less when you are the operator. So that means that the investors who are going to buy your business don't want to buy a job. So if you run your business as a job, you are devaluing your business by fact. If the task can be done for less than $100 an hour, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Someone else should be doing it. What you got to understand is that as you train other people to do it, it's going to take much longer to do it, and they're going to do it at a much lower level than you. And you're going to be pissed off about that. You're going to be upset. You're going to be frustrated. Hey, I can do this better. And all of those are temptations for you to jump back in. But the longer you stay in, the longer you can't get out.
Hey there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Jack Boss Show, where we talk about all things real estate, finance, and entrepreneurship. And today we're going to talk about how to exit your business without exiting with the real Jason Duncan. Jason, how are you doing today?
I am doing great, Jack. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you too. Good to see you. So I'm excited because you're America's exit coach, yet you say that you're talking about exiting without exiting. So first, let's jump right in. What the heck does that mean?
So exit without exiting stems from an experience that I had. It's probably a lot like some of other entrepreneurs who are listening to the show may have had. I had a very successful business. We were doing 7-figure bottom line. I had a business coach I was working with, and I was kind of tired of running the business. And I said, hey, coach, his name was BJ. I said, hey, BJ, I think I'm ready to exit and sell the business. And he said, okay. He said, well, you're not going to be able to sell it. I said, we have a 7-figure bottom line. We're doing really, really well. He said, well, the reason you don't want to run it is the same reason nobody wants to buy it. And he said, you're the business. Everything revolves around you. And so it's not really worth anything. I mean, you could sell it, but you're not going to get what you think. So that started me on about an 18-month journey of discovery. Well, how do I get out of the weeds and keep the company, keep the money, keep the income, but not sell the business? And it took me a while to do it. And when I finished and I was able to step away from daily operations, the company didn't implode or break down. I started talking with other people about what I did. Hey, did you exit? You exited your company? Yeah. Okay, you sold it. No, I didn't sell it. What do you mean? I thought you said you exited. Well, I exited without exiting. And that was how the phrase was born. And then that turned into a concept that I started speaking on. And then ultimately a marketing company came to me and said, hey, man, you need to write a book on this.
Yeah, very beautiful. So what kind of business was that?
That was a lighting and electrical contracting company.
Okay, so brick and mortar, lighting, electrical contract. Did you do a lot of the contracting work, or did you do mostly like running the operations?
Did I do the contracting work? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Individually? No, I didn't. I was not an electrician, nor was I an installer. Although at the beginning I did everything, but I didn't do any of that. I ran operations and sales.
Okay, operations, sales, back office, and then you had people that did all the installations. And so what's the number one thing, or perhaps the number 1, 2, 3 things that you did in order to get out of the weeds? Because I'm sure a lot of my audience is a lot of real estate investors and real estate and particularly land investors, but even from all kinds of walks of life. And I think one of the biggest fear of the people is, particularly if they want to start something also part-time, is that, well, I'm adding myself a second job. And even if I then do it full-time, I got more money, but I'm working just as many hours. Is there a way out of that dilemma?
Well, it starts with the mindset. The answer to that is yes. It starts with mindset. You got to understand that as a business owner, your business is worth significantly less when you are the operator. And that's not because I want it to be, or it helps my coaching business. That is an actual statistic that you can look up the research. 30 to 50% reduction in valuation if the business is operated by the owner. So that tells us something. So that means that the investors who are going to buy your business don't want to buy a job. So if you run your business as a job, you are devaluing your business by fact. There's no way to argue around it. So it starts with understanding the mindset. But then secondarily, I built a 7-stage methodology called XOS, Exeter Operating System, XOS. And the first stage of that is basic delegation. It's understanding. So if you're in the real estate business, you got to do basic delegation around the tasks that other people can do. There may be a unique task that you like to do and you're better at it than everybody else. That's fine. But sending emails is probably not it. Probably driving out and viewing a property just to make sure that it has the, that it matches the plat, if that's something you have to do, or, things like that. You don't need to do that stuff. So you probably have out a list of 10 things you do, maybe one that you should be doing. The other 9 should be going to someone else. Think about it this way. If the task can be done for less than $100 an hour, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Someone else should be doing it. So basic delegation. And then I'm not going to go through all 7 stages, but the second stage is assembling your support squad. It's the getting the people on your team, administrative assistants or an executive assistant, or maybe it's a sales rep, or maybe it's in your case, a transaction coordinator. Maybe it's those types of things. You need to get those people in place. And then the third is getting your A team ready. And your A team, these are going to be the people that you rely on when you're not there. So if you want to take a 2-week vacation, your business can't die. So who's going to be in charge while you're gone? That's who your A team is. And then the system continues to build until you get to the place where you can exit.
All right. So that's a few steps here. So the first, let's talk about how you did that. Now, if you have a business that's going to have a 7-figure bottom line, you got the volume for that. But what if somebody doesn't have that level of profitability yet? When I talk to entrepreneurs, or especially when I look at my own history, when we started up our first businesses that we bootstrapped, then when you bootstrap, your name is in every single box of every responsibility of the org chart. And then over time, as the business, it's not the easiest thing in the world to then say, you know what, let me fire myself out of that and put something else there, because if I can do it, I can do it. But of course, then you have nothing sellable. But so if somebody runs which of these roles should they get rid of first, and what's the sequence of those steps, particularly if the business is not yet doing multiple 7 figures and you got the budget to hire an A team. Right. Put all the A players in place. Most people grow into that, right?
Yeah. Well, and you're exactly right, Jack. You grow into that, and you're also going to grow out of that. So just like anything that we expect to grow, it takes time, and it's going to be painfully slower than we want it to be. So when you start this process of exiting, whether you're actually aiming at a sale or you're aiming at doing what I teach is exit without exiting, whichever it is, you got to understand this is going to take some time. And it's going to take you being committed to the process and understanding that there's going to be a dip in productivity and a dip in outcome while you're building this. So if you can imagine on 2 axes, an x-axis and a y-axis, if yet time is over the long axis, and then the ability to get it done is on the other one. Your ability to get it done and in the shortest amount of time. Like you can do it really fast and you can do it really better than everybody else. What you got to understand is that as you train other people to do it, it's going to take much longer to do it, and they're going to do it at a much lower level than you. And you're going to be pissed off about that. You're going to be upset. You're going to be frustrated. Hey, I could do this better. And all of those are temptations for you to jump back in. But the longer you stay in, the longer you can't get out. So you've got to understand that there's going to be a dip in productivity. There's going to be a dip in your expectations. And you got to embrace that. Because remember, when you first started doing what you do now, you sucked at it. And so is Bob. When Bob starts doing it, he's going to suck at it. And you got to let Bob embrace the suck. He's going to do it badly. And there's certain ways that I teach that you can help Bob go through the process of understanding how to do it bad so that he gets better than you. I've got a good story about a guy that I hired right out of college long time ago. And he worked for me for a decade before I exited the business. And when he first started, I assigned all operation stuff to him. And he was sucked at it. He was no good at it. And eventually I turned over purchasing to him, where he had to purchase product from our vendors. And he was not good at that in terms of negotiating. Like he could buy the product, but I could negotiate. If I say I'm buying 1,000 pieces, I could get a discount. He didn't know how to do that. He wasn't as good a salesperson as me. So did I pay more money? Sure. For about a year, I paid a lot more money than I probably should have. But I knew I got to be committed to this. And if I commit to it, ultimately, I'm going to make a lot more money later. And isn't that what investing is? I mean, investing.
And at what point of time do you know? But at what point of time do you know that Bob is going to make it?
Say
or
that again.
Bob needs to be cut loose?
So when do you know? All right. So what you're looking for is you're looking for 80%. It's the rule of 80%. The rule of 80% says that when Bob can do it at 80% of your expectation, then Bob is now forever assigned that job. That's his job. But at 50%, he still needs to be trained. At 60%, he still needs to be trained. And so somewhere around the 80%, you got to go, you know what? This is pretty good. And so Bob can do it. So I teach this thing called the training wheels to delegation. And part of that
The
is,
training,
is
what?
this,
How is it called?
the training wheels to delegation.
The training
And
wheels to delegation.
yeah.
Okay.
So it's like learning to ride a bike. You don't
Mm-hmm.
use the training wheels forever, but they help you learn. So with the training wheels to delegation, what you're going to do is you're going to start by making a list of the top 10 things you're doing on a regular basis that probably shouldn't be doing. That's step one. Step two is you pick one of those and you delegate it for 30 days. And you put the time limit on it. So when you call Bob in the office, you say, hey, Bob, this is 30 days, man. We're just going to try this out. I want you to do X, whatever X is, for 30 days. So that's what you do. Now, the third step is you check in once a week, no more and no less. This will prevent you from micromanaging because micromanaging doesn't help you. So every Thursday, for example, you might get together with Bob at 9 o'clock and say, hey, how did it go? Fourth step is during those check-in meetings. This is the hardest part, Jack. This is where everybody quits. The fourth step is you cannot correct Bob in these check-in meetings. You can only praise him. So if Bob comes in and he's done it terribly, you can't correct it. Now, of course, the caveat is if somebody's going to die or somebody's going to go to jail, obviously you got to step in and fix that. But that's not going to happen. We all know that.
Also, I guess the assumption is you don't give him something that's so mission critical that the company goes down the drain.
That's right.
If you don't correct him.
It's babies. These are training wheels. These are training wheels. So when you come in, if he comes in and it's a dumpster fire, you got to say something like, well, Bob, I really appreciate you being on time every day this week or something. Like you got to praise him. And now the question, because everybody stops on this one, the question that I say that you can ask that will help Bob think differently is you ask Bob the question, how do you think I would have done that differently? Don't say to Bob, how do you think you should have done that differently? Because then that makes Bob go, well, if I'd have known how to do it differently, I would have done it differently to begin with. But if you put him in that situation by thinking about how you would do it, he could probably figure that out. So that's the step four. And then step five is the 80% rule. What you're looking for is you're looking for him to do it at 80% of your outcome. And if he can't get there, maybe he needs another 30 days. Maybe it's 90 days. But at some point, if he can't get to close to 80%, you got to fire Bob from that delegation task and give it to somebody else. Bob, that's not Bob's task. Give it to somebody else. And then step six is you just repeat that process until your task list is empty. That your job is to get your task list empty, so it's an asset that you're running, not a job that you operate.
Okay. Now, after your task list is empty, how do you keep track of to make sure that stuff doesn't falls off the bandwagon and then even though it was done for 30, 60, 90 days, some point of time it stops being done? Yeah.
Yeah, this is where you build key metrics. So if you look at it this way, there are three tiers to the entrepreneurial evolution. And think about it like a triangle. So the bottom tier is where most people are, and that's owner operator. The middle tier, which is a tiny slice in the middle of the triangle, that's owner managers. And in both of those tiers, the business still relies on the owner, but in the bottom, the owner's operating. In the middle, he's managing, but everything still relies on him. It's the top tier, tier one, that maybe 2 or 3% of entrepreneurs ever get to, is the owner investor. The owner investor. And I think this is language that your audience will very much appreciate. So what does an investor do? An investor is not mowing the grass at that land. The investor is not clearing trees. The investor is not doing that stuff. What's the investor doing? He or she has key metrics that they're paying attention to, whether it's appreciation and value, whether it's infrastructure, considerations, or what. I don't know land investing. I'm just coming up with the words that I think might make sense. But there are certain metrics that a land investor or any kind of real estate investor is looking at because they understand this is an investment. This is not a job. This is an investment. So if jobs need to be done, I hire people to go do that. I am paying attention to the investment. And you know what? Every business is the same. As the architect of the business, as the owner of the business, your job is to set the vision for the business, communicate that vision to everybody involved, and build the business as an asset. So once you get your task list empty, that's when you can start doing that, because you can't do it while you're in the weeds. You got to get out of the weeds before you can start building it as an asset.
Yeah. And that's the challenge that a lot of people have. Now, our business have grown to a large degree to the point, even when in one of our last businesses, I'm extricating myself from the operations right now. I have been already doing that for the last year. We just put a COO in place. So for the next 2 to 4 weeks, I'm handing off the last few pieces. Now, this lady wonderful person, has been with us already for 4 or 5 years. So she already knows, it comes from the inside. So there's not a long transition period as it would happen with an outside person. But even there's a few things that I probably still need to learn from this and implement. So again, going to the person that's like growing their business, they don't have. Well, they might have a Bob, and then at what point of time do you recommend them hiring the next level or the next person in order to be able to take that step to the next point? Because again, if you start, like, let's go into the brick and mortar business. You start a air conditioned business as a one man show. You're going to pick up your own floor. You're going to go, or like I have an apartment complex in Louisiana, and just before we went on live, I get a phone call and I had to click it away, and then I had a text message from a roofer. And that roofer is basically a guy with 3 helpers doing the work. He does all the work himself. He schedules it, he bills, he does the work. If he wants to become a big company, what are his first hires? At what revenue points or profitability points does he take that next step? Can you give us some guidance on that?
Yeah, that's a great question, because this is really practical. This is nuts and bolts stuff. There are two hires or 2 expenses, I should say, because hires, you might think of an employee W-2, but it doesn't have to be a W-2 employee. There are 2 specific investments that every entrepreneur needs as soon as he or she starts a business. One is a bookkeeper, and 2 is a business coach. And I say that, of course, as a business coach, and people probably think, well, that's self-serving. No, I'm a business coach with a business coach, right? I have a coach who coaches me. I'm a part of a mastermind because I believe in it, because it's the way we excel in life. Napoleon Hill wrote in Think and Grow Rich about the 500 greatest, most successful people at the time, and every one of them say without question, you got to have a mastermind. You got to have other people around you. And so if Henry Ford needed a mastermind, if Thomas Edison needed one, then surely you running your roofing company, you need one too. So a bookkeeper and a coach. Now, a bookkeeper is important because you need to know where the money's going, and you're not good at it. Like, nobody, I don't care if you got an accounting degree, you don't do your own books, let somebody else do it, because there's no emotional attachment. If a third party is doing it, they're not going to justify, well, he really did need to spend that $200. No, they're just going to say, you spent $200 in this, please explain what this is for. What category do I put it in? There's no emotional attachment. You got to watch your money. Because if you don't pay attention to your money, you're never going to be able to grow past where you are being the operator. The second, the business coach, for the reasons I've already explained. So those are the 2 things. So if you say you've got those, let's say you're a roofer, and you've got a business coach, and you've got a bookkeeper, and let's say you're pulling just enough money out to pay the bills for your house, for your household. Well, as you grow your business and you get the next job, do not increase your level of living. And listeners, if you want to talk to an expert in this, Jack Bosch is the guy. I remember that more than anything else in the episode that I had him on my show, was this idea of delayed gratification. The guy's worth tens of millions of dollars, still living in a house that he bought for $150,000. Like, he had a car more expensive than his house. Like, the delayed gratification. This is what you need to make sure you have. As your income and revenue goes up, you delay your increase in lifestyle, because you need to allocate some of that money for an assistant. And I think for most entrepreneurs, there are some rare exceptions, an actual W-2 employee, the first one you need to hire is probably an assistant. You got to get somebody to handle all the admin tasks, emails, scheduling, billing, all that stuff needs to go through somebody else other than you. And then after the assistant, that's where it starts depending upon what industry you're in, what do you do. It might be a salesperson, it might be a coder, it might be a technology person, it could be an installer, it could be an operations. The first, I started a company in the lighting business. The first person we ever hired was a salesperson. because we could outsource a lot of the other stuff with the installations. We could outsource to contractors. But then once we got the salesperson in place, the next third person I hired an assistant. Now, that was what I
And
did.
of course, the accountant.
Yeah.
Or
Well, yeah, I
bookkeeping.
had that already.
Yeah.
I had a coach and I had the accountant already, but then like W-2 on staff, I hired a salesperson first and then an assistant. I wish I'd have done it the other direction, which is the way I just explained, but that's what I did. And then the third person I hired was an operations person. And that operations person is the person I was referring to earlier who was no good at his job at first, but ultimately he's better at it than me today. Like he outgrew me because I gave it to him to do it. So I think you baby step into this. It took you a long time to get where you are today. You're going to have to baby step your way out of it.
That's a beautiful answer. Thank you for that, because it really it shows that even like mistakes that I have made, because in every business that we have done, we've always done it in essence the wrong way, which made it really harder afterwards to turn it around. And what I mean by that is the wrong way is I always says like, hey, in order for me to really know how to do this, I got to do it first myself. So I was like bootstrapped the businesses, did everything myself, and then replaced myself over time. And that replacing myself became infinitely harder than what I just heard you say. Basically, have the sales guy take care of sales, have the assistant take care of scheduling and all this kind of things. And then the third person, almost like that one surprised me the most, but it makes perfect sense, is the operations person. So you have two overhead person and one revenue generating person, but it makes sense because that way, right from the very beginning, you stepping out of the operations. Yep. Versus most people, that's what the last thing they do. They first get into everything, and that includes myself. Got into everything, did everything, ran everything, and now it's so much harder once you build a more complex kind of thing, get somebody to take over those complexities. Versus it's so much easier to take somebody over a simple business and then make it into the more complex business. Is that a fair assessment?
I think you're right. I mean, we got to do it the right way because in the long run, that makes everything easy. That makes everything easy. Just think about if you're going to go out for a run or you're going to go out for a walk, you can tie your shoes in a way that the laces will not come undone, but it might take you half an hour to figure out how to get your shoes off because you tied the wrong kind of knot, but it worked. I mean, it did work and your shoes didn't fall off, but now you're sitting down sweaty at the end of the run. You just want to get out of your shoes and you can't untie them because they're knotted. Well, that's the same thing with businesses. We do stuff fast and we pull the strings in, we do everything we can and it works until we're ready to get out and then we can't get out. You know, if you build a building with one way in and no way out, what do you call that? That's a dungeon. Well, businesses are built with one way in and they never think about a way out. You got to start thinking about the way out at the beginning.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of meeting Sir Richard Branson one time. I was invited to some charity function that he did, and I got a free ticket to it. And I went there, and he comes in, and obviously everyone storms him, and everyone wants to see him. And somehow he passes right by me, and I had this 12-second conversation with him. And I just simply asked him the question, like, Mr. Branson or Sir Branson, I don't remember how I addressed him, but how in the world can you run 57 businesses or whatever number of businesses he has? Because there's Virgin Galactic, there's Virgin Atlantic, there's Virgin, the record stores, there's, whatever, all these different things. And he's like, very simply, find the best people in the world and get out of their way. And I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. But I do understand it now because I understand it now because now when you're in the trenches up until here, you wish you would have found somebody that's the best at it all, that's already done it, because that's the difference between delegation and finding another leader to take care of things. So how do you go from delegation to actually fostering and growing leadership within your own company?
Well, I think paying attention to culture is really, really important. I take on a few private clients where I do one-on-one coaching every year, and a lot of the stuff I work with the private clients is culture initiatives. How do you build culture into your business? And it has to be on purpose. And the fact of the matter is, we as entrepreneurs, we don't need that stuff. We feel like culture buildings like fluffy and it's foo and all this woo woo whatever. No, you might not need it, but your people that are working for you need to understand that you care about them and they want something that they can cling to, not just the paycheck. There are really three reasons, and one of my mentors taught me this a long time ago, and I'll never forget it. There are three reasons why people will come to work for you and stay working for you. And they are these, and these are the only three, and these are in order. The first of all is they want to understand that you might think it's money, and money is one of the things, but it's not. They want to be part of something. They want to be recognized, and they want to have opportunity, and want to have financial resources. But the most important one is opportunity. So what are you showing them? Are you giving them an opportunity? Do they have opportunity to do anything in your business? Is there an opportunity to grow? Is there an opportunity to move up? Is there an opportunity to see a big change happen? It's not just, I want to go from entry level to mid manager to upper management. That could be it. But what opportunity are you showing them? Is there an opportunity that we're changing the world? Is there an opportunity that we're making a big impact in the community? Is there an opportunity to make a difference in the lives of the people around us? They want opportunity. And the second thing they want is recognition. They want to be recognized for what they are doing. Some people want money as recognition. Some people want titles. Some people want cookies on their desk. But they want to be recognized. And then the third is finances. So they want to be remunerated in an appropriate way. And not everybody just wants more money. I know one of my clients has a salesperson who works for them, and the salesperson makes, I don't know, probably $100,000, whatever, per year in commissions. But the company, like she is single-handedly responsible for tens of millions of dollars a year in sales. And she's happy as a lark. Like if you doubled her salary, it wouldn't make her any happier. She's fine. Now, those people are hard to find, but they're out there. So recognition, opportunity recognition, and finances in that order. What are you doing? Build the culture so that people will want to stay with you for the whole ride.
Opportunity, recognition, and
finances.
Wonderful. Yeah. No, I couldn't agree with you more. And that also, like in the early days, like I think we were a revolving door. Like in our first business, we grew our first business to 8 figures, but we didn't know what we were doing. We were just pure hustle and then adding bodies and adding people to it. Of that company that at the peak had 35 people, there's one left. One. He has been working with us for 20 years now. Right? And he's our chief technology officer of our entire companies, of all our companies. And he grew from, we don't even know what to do with him. Let's hire him because by recommendation of somebody, he's going to be the best hire you ever had. And he was. So, but you know what? He got the opportunity, he got the growth, he got the recognition, and eventually he got the compensation for it too. So, but we didn't know what we're doing. Now we have a team where probably 70% of our team has been with us 5 years or more.
Yeah, that's great.
And then so what's the difference? Right? What's the difference? Well, the difference is exactly what you said. So 100% agree. So corporate culture is the unsung glue that keeps everything together, that most people say, I got to create that once I have a bigger company. But I think it's the other way around. Do you agree? You have to have it in order to attract a bigger company.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how big your company is. Culture is part of it, even if it's just you and one other person.
And you have culture anyway, don't you?
Yeah.
You just whether you have it on default by whatever you do, or you have it on purpose.
Yeah, that's like brand. I mean, a brand exists whether you've tried to do it or not. Like you should be in charge of it rather than let it happen. Culture is the same thing. Be in charge of the culture. Be in charge of it. Because honestly, let's face it, when you get past 25 employees, something magical happens in any business. It's just a psychological phenomenon, and the owner is no longer in charge of what the culture is moving forward. He can influence it a little bit, but he's no longer in charge of it. But up to 25, you have full chart. You're in fully in control of what that culture is going to be in the business. You can.
You
make
think
decisions.
so? After 25, what's the reason for that?
I don't know. I think it's just a human psychological change. Every entrepreneur I've ever worked with as a coach, every entrepreneur I've had as a colleague, we have conversations about that 25 number, and everybody's like, you know what, you're right. At 25, something changes. I started my company, it was just me and a business partner, and then we grew it. And I think the height, we had like 37 or 40, I can't remember, somewhere around 40 employees. And when we crossed the 25 threshold, that was the first time I ever knew this fact. We crossed that 25 threshold, things started changing in a palpable way. I could feel it. Like it was different around the office. Things looked different, felt different. And it wasn't bad. It was just different. And I realized something had changed. And then somebody told me, oh yeah, past 25, you're no longer in charge of the culture. It starts taking a life of its own. And we had made some bad hires, Jack. We had, like, in that fast growth, I think we onboarded like 12 people in one day. And I don't ever recommend that, but we had this big project coming on and we needed them. And those 12 people were just enough to sway a lot of the other people in the organization in a way that we didn't want. So we culled it back. I think we got back down to 20 or 22, and it started feeling better again. And I don't think on purpose, I don't think we ever went back above 25. We kept it there because we didn't want it to change. Churches are the same way. 250 is the number for churches. If you ever study evangelical churches in the U.S., and you get past 250, it goes off the rails. It's very few churches ever make it past that number and sustain it. It's weird. It's a psychological thing.
Interesting. Yeah. I remember, I only worked for one company in my corporate life, and that company, I joined it as employee plus minus 500. And 3 years later, the company had 7,000 people. And I felt that was a company where the culture was very much intact at 7,000. Now the structures changed. Like it was like, I was in professional services, I was in consulting, and it was like the expense policy was like, be reasonable. So in other words, don't go to Spargo for a $300 dinner. That's not reasonable. But if go for a steak for $50, that's fine, or a burger, obviously everything below that is fine. So you kind of like stay reasonable. And then later on, obviously it has clear numbers. So it's like, if you're in that city, you got this budget. If you got city, you got that budget. And that was it shifted from a startup spirit to a mature spirit, but the spirit of the company was very heavily driven by the CEO and the founder of the company. And he just in memos, in group telephone calls, back in the days, there was no Zoom around, and through the different visits of executives and things like that, it was one message from day one. And so that was probably then the exception, because I do remember that when we grew our company to like 35 and another company to 75 people, that the culture did go sideways, and we had to step in and really it is heavy lifting trying to change that culture back into the direction that you wanted to go, and it's almost impossible. So we actually went back down to in numbers for various reasons, and now growing much more carefully with culture fit being really the number one focus.
Yeah. Well, you said you think that was the exception. I actually think that it proves the rule, because it sounds like that company, whoever that was, were very intentional about making sure that culture message was passed down, and it didn't stop as it grew. So the upper management was culture thing. So it was very intentional. So it didn't happen by accident, and it didn't happen because they happened to hire good people who just somehow kept the culture going. It was very intentional, where in your experience and in my experience, if we were both being honest, we weren't as intentional. And as it grew, we're like, holy crap, this is not what I wanted. And we had to pull it back and retool it.
And I think that's the key, because most of us are not doing what you now do, what you're preaching, which is get the operations right in place and step out of it right at the beginning. So we're just growing the business without any focus on culture. And then we're realizing that once we're realizing the importance of it, is when culture goes sideways and you realize, well, that's not what I wanted to do. And then it's almost a little bit late. So in this case, this person had gone up the corporate career ladder at Oracle. Well, Siebel Systems is the name of the company. So no longer, they sold it to Oracle later on, but he went up the career ladder, started this company on scratch, got $20 million funding from, back then, Anderson Consulting, doesn't even exist anymore, one of the accounting firms, and brought some partners in, and then very, very strategically, almost textbook-like, grew this company to a multi-billion-dollar company, and then sold it right back to Oracle, where he came from in the first place. But yeah, I agree with you. I was sometimes coming from a business background. I have a business degree. I was sometimes sitting in awe by seeing what the management moves they're making. Me as a fresh graduate, no idea, no, just beginning, but still having the school things in mind. I agree with you. It was actually very, very strategically done. Why? Because he probably had all the experience of how not to do it before. And the gentleman was in his 50s already when he did that. And I think that's a good lesson to learn from here. Don't take that lightly. Design your culture from the beginning, free yourself from operations right from get-go, and focus your time on making sure the culture and the spirit of the company grows in the right direction. Because once that is done really well, then it can exceed the 25 people.
Exactly. And it really goes back to intentionality. And that's probably the theme of this entire conversation, is that we have to be intentional with what we want in the end. So we got to begin with the end in mind. What do you want? Do you want to sell the company at some point? Or do you want to die in place and the company die with you? If you want the former, not the latter, if you want to be able to sell the company at some point down the road, you intentionally have to build towards that. You can't just start off and do whatever the heck you want and expect you to get to that outcome. And that's unfortunately what happened in my company. I built a multi-million-dollar company from scratch, but I was not intentional. I was flying by the seat of my pants, didn't know what I was doing. I woke up one day and was like, oh, I guess I'm a millionaire. I have this great business. Everything's going good. And I did not intentionally get to a place where I could exit it the right way. And so I did pull off an exit without exiting, and it was great. But that's not what most people are able to do. We have to intentionally work towards what it is that we want. As the revenue grows, your responsibility for the metrics and what you're paying attention to from a financial standpoint grow, then you can lose a business real fast by not paying attention to the financial metrics. And I'm speaking from experience. I did that. So you got to pay attention.
Do you still run this company? Do you still own this company? Not run, but you still own this company?
I don't know. That company, we had it's a long, terrible story. Ultimately, it closed down at the end of 2023. I had another company who was going to buy it. And I put together what I thought was a good structure for a long-term buyout, and it didn't work, and I got screwed. And I'll just leave it at that. It wasn't. I was complicit in what happened. I will not blame it on everybody else. I had a part in this, but I got screwed in the deal. I ultimately had to shut it down. But luckily, I have other businesses, and all my eggs weren't in one single basket.
Okay. Well, that happens. Particularly, I think if you say like it was a long-term kind of exit. So like those I have been advised are hard to do because you're eventually, once you're really completely out, it's hard then to keep anything going because you're no longer in the picture.
Yeah, I can write a whole nother book on what not to do.
There you go.
Which is,
I think we all can.
Yeah, but
we all can.
What's funny is that as I was going through the hard time at the end of 2023, not knowing how to handle this, I had kept it very quiet. I had not told any of my clients about what I was going through. But some of the people who were a little closer to me, some of my clients were much more closer to friends than just clients. They kind of knew something was up. They didn't understand what was happening. And we were in an event. We were hosting a workshop one weekend, and we do hot seats at our live workshops. So at the end of the event, we go around, everybody gets half an hour to kind of, what do you need help with? And we kind of help each other. Well, I don't ever take one of those hot seats because I'm the facilitator, I'm the coach. And one of the guys in the groups looked at me and said, I think you probably need one. Why don't you take one? And I did, and it ended up being like 2 hours. It like kept going and going and going. I was like puking, not physically, but like I was just throwing up all this stuff. And they were just sitting there wide-eyed, and I'm going, I have just destroyed another business in the process. I'm going to lose my coaching company because these guys are going to know that I don't know everything. And it's totally the opposite, Jack. They were all almost relieved. It's as if they looked at me with this idea of, well, he never makes any mistakes, although I didn't set that up to happen.
Well, yeah.
But then they realized, oh, well, he's not Superman either. This happens to all of us. And they knew intuitively that because of the mistakes that were made, I was going to be better as an entrepreneur, better as a coach moving forward. And believe me, I have. And so last year, we tripled in size, and I plan to double in size this year. I mean, it's going really well in spite of the fact that I have a huge this looming albatross of thing that happened to me. It was terrible, the worst experience of my life, but it's turning out okay in the end.
Wonderful. That's beautiful. Yeah, we all as entrepreneurs have a whole lot of stories to tell. They say if anyone knew, I saw a meme the other day that says, actually, I saw it this morning. I got to pull it up because it's, we don't do it. We do this not because it's easy, but because we thought it would be easy.
Yeah.
And so at the beginning, it's like, well, it sounds like a great idea. Let's start a company and thing. And I think all of us, if we knew just how involved it is to run a really successful business, many wouldn't do it. But I think the number one thing I can say in order to make it much, 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 much easier is get the advice of somebody that has done it before. Get a proper business coach. And I think with that, I mean, you have a business coaching company. Tell us about that. Tell us how people can get in contact with you. How can they learn more?
So I run the Exeter Club. It's a mastermind for entrepreneurs, business owners in the United States doing at least 3 million in revenue. If you don't hit the revenue mark, you got to at least have 300K in bottom line net profit. As long as you meet one of those two financial marks, you're at least qualified to have a conversation. Let's talk about it. It's a year-long, 1 year at a time experience, although most guys stay in year after year after year. And we meet a couple of times a month by Zoom. We do 3 in-person meetings per year, and we have some amazing guest speakers that come in and do master classes for us on different topics. Jack's going to come in and do one we talked about when he was on my podcast last week. He's going to come do one on land investing, which is what he's an expert in. So we cater to entrepreneurs that are overworked and understand that this isn't sustainable. And we show them how to get out of the weeds of daily operations. And then ultimately, we show them how to get ready to sell. We actually have one of our clients right now actively have their business listed we have an investment banking coach on our team. So he's listed their business. We have an M&A attorney on our team. We have a finance coach. We have a wealth manager. We have a financial advisor. And we've got a mindset coach all on the team who coach everybody in the club. It's not just me. I'm trying to build a business that I can exit from too. And we're about to announce, I can't announce it publicly, but we're going to announce this Thursday at our meeting another huge partnership that's going to be a benefit to our members that has a lot to do with what you and I were talking about today. And so I'm really excited. We're just continuing to add value to this mastermind. I believe it's one of the best in the country for entrepreneurs. And I'm just honored to lead it. You can go to therealjasonduncan.com/mastermind, therealjasonduncan.com/mastermind to learn more about it.
All right, wonderful. So therealjasonduncan.com/mastermind. Go there, check it out. Again, if you're listening to this and you are successful, whether you do $3 million in revenue, and there's always a question of how that is defined, but therefore is the other one, the $300,000 in NOI and income for the year, business income, you qualify for that. Go check it out. Thank you very much for being on the show with us.
It's great, Jack. Thank you, man.
All right, so that's that, guys. That's a wrap. As always, give us that 5-star review, forward it to your friends, subscribe, you know the drill, and I'll see you in the next show. Bye-bye.